Carney knows that if tariffs remain a permanent fixture, they won't just hurt big corporations, they'll punish ordinary Canadians. And that's where the conversation with Trump becomes crucial. If Canada can signal good faith, if Canada can ease retaliatory measures without looking weak, then there's a chance for a reset. A chance for cheaper goods. A chance for more stability. But let's not romanticize this. Every Canadian government that's tried to cozy up to Washington has faced a brutal reality check. Because when you deal with the United States, there's always a catch. There's always a cost. So here's the question we'll explore tonight: is Carney's outreach a masterstroke of diplomacy? Or the first step toward Canada giving away too much, too soon? It wasn't a summit. It wasn't a televised handshake. It was just a phone call. But sometimes, the quiet moments in politics carry the loudest echoes. On Monday, Prime Minister Mark Carney confirmed that he spoke directly with Donald Trump. His words: the conversation was productive and wide-ranging. Trump, never one for subtlety, called it a good talk. So what exactly happened in that conversation?
Very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said that's the way it was meant to be. But you know, I do feel it's much better for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem.
And why is it sending such a ripple through Canadian politics? According to officials close to the Prime Minister's office, the call lasted nearly an hour. The two men discussed trade, tariffs, and North American cooperation under CUSMA. But the conversation went beyond economics. It touched on energy security, border management, and even geopolitical flashpoints like NATO and China. Now here's the key: Carney didn't frame this as a concession. He framed it as an opportunity. A chance to reset a relationship that has been strained for years. The first major development from that call is already in motion. Canada is dropping most of its counter tariffs on U.S. goods. Let's break this down. Since 2018, Canadian consumers have been paying more for everyday items because Ottawa slapped retaliatory tariffs on them, everything from ketchup to refrigerators. It was designed to hurt U.S. exporters and send a message back to Trump's White House. But here's the truth: those tariffs hurt Canadian families just as much. Prices went up. Importers struggled. Retailers complained. And for many Canadians, buying American goods became an act of political resistance. Now, Carney has moved to eliminate the bulk of those counter tariffs, nearly $21 billion worth of goods. What's still protected? Steel. Aluminum. Automobiles. Why? Because those industries aren't just economic assets, they're political weapons. They're the backbone of Canadian jobs, especially in Ontario and Quebec. And no Prime Minister, not even one with Carney's technocratic calm, is willing to give that leverage away. In short, Canada is telling the United States, we're ready to make peace on orange juice and jeans, but don't touch our steel and autos. Asking tonight, was this just polite diplomacy, or the first real step in thawing one of the iciest periods in Canada, U.S. trade relations? Because let's be clear, this isn't just about tariffs, containers, or balance sheets. This is about how much Canadians pay for groceries, how strong our industries remain, and whether Canada can stand tall next to its most powerful ally, without being pushed to its knees. In the next few minutes, we'll break down what was said, why it matters, and how this one conversation could reshape Canada's economic future. This isn't just a headline. It's a turning point. So let's dig in. To understand why this call is making waves, we need to rewind. Canada and the U.S. share the longest undefended border in the world, and more than $3 billion in goods cross it every single day. From cars and steel to maple syrup and avocados, our economies are tied like threads in the same fabric. But those threads have been fraying. Back in 2018, Donald Trump, then president, launched a full-blown tariff war. Steel and aluminum from Canada were slapped with heavy duties. Ottawa fired back with retaliatory tariffs on American goods, orange juice, ketchup, jeans, coffee pods, and more. Everyday items suddenly became symbols of political warfare. These tit-for-tat measures didn't just stay in boardrooms. They hit Canadians at the checkout line. And they sent a clear message: even our closest ally could become our toughest rival. When the dust settled, the old NAFTA was replaced with CUSMA, the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement. But despite the New Deal, tension never fully disappeared. Fast forward to today. Mark Carney, a former Bank of Canada governor, now sits in the Prime Minister's chair. His style is measured, pragmatic, and economic-minded. And across the border? Donald Trump, fiery, populist, unpredictable, is again the face of American politics. So when Carney says he had a productive and wide-ranging conversation with Trump, it isn't just a friendly courtesy. It's a signal. A signal that after years of friction, Canada may be opening the door to a new chapter. But why does this matter so much now? The answer is simple: Canadians are feeling the squeeze. Inflation may be cooling on paper, but families are still struggling. Groceries are expensive. Housing is unaffordable. And many industries, from steel mills in Hamilton to farmers in Saskatchewan, are worried about their survival. The second development is harder to measure, but just as powerful: symbolism. Diplomacy is not just about policy. It's about trust, about signals, about the art of what is left unsaid. Carney's rollback of tariffs is being read in Washington as a gesture of good faith. A message that Canada is serious about rebuilding ties. And in response, Trump's casual praise, "a good talk," is his way of saying the door isn't closed. Now, some will dismiss this as fluff. But in politics, perception often matters more than reality. Think about it: after years of friction, one friendly phone call changes the tone of the conversation. Investors notice. Markets react. And Canadians at home start to wonder, could this actually mean cheaper groceries next month? But here's where things get even more interesting. This wasn't just about peanut butter and paper towels. Multiple sources confirm that the Carney-Trump call also touched on broader geopolitical issues. The United States is facing mounting competition from China, strained alliances in Europe, and uncertainty in NATO. For Canada, this is both an opportunity and a trap. On one hand, aligning closely with Washington could strengthen Canada's global influence. On the other hand, it risks pulling Canada deeper into American battles that may not always serve Canadian interests. So when Carney talks about a wide-ranging discussion, read between the lines, this wasn't just trade talk. This was Canada negotiating its place in a shifting world order. But now comes the million-dollar question: is this truly a thaw, or just the calm before another storm? Because while some Canadians welcome cheaper goods, others warn that Carney may have blinked too early, giving Trump a win without getting real concessions in return. In the next part, we'll dig into the political reactions, from Parliament Hill to the Union Halls, and why this phone call could reshape Canada's next election.